In the 1870s, the Texas Panhandle was not a place for the uncertain. It was a vast sweep of grassland stretching beneath an endless sky, where the wind never seemed to rest and the horizon felt impossibly far away. There were no crowded cities, no paved streets, no guarantees. What existed instead was raw land, untamed, unpredictable, and indifferent to human ambition. Those who came here did not arrive by accident. They came because they believed that hardship could carve opportunity and that character could be forged through struggle. The Civil War had ended, but its scars lingered across the nation. Many families sought a fresh beginning far from old battlefields and broken economies. The Panhandle offered space, miles upon miles of open prairie where a determined person could stake a claim and build something lasting. Yet the land demanded payment in endurance. Summers scorched the plains with punishing heat. Winters swept down in sudden blue northers that froze water buckets solid overnight. Drought could wither crops in weeks, and violent thunderstorms rolled across the flatlands with terrifying speed, lightning splitting the sky like cannon fire. Settlers built homes from sod and timber hauled across great distances. They dug wells by hand and learned to read the sky like a book, searching for signs of coming storms. Every task required strength: hauling water, repairing fences, tending livestock, protecting fields from stampedes or prairie fires. There were no quick solutions. Survival depended on grit and cooperation. Neighbors might live miles apart, but when trouble came, distance vanished. Communities formed through shared labor and shared danger, binding families together with unspoken trust. Cattle ranching quickly became the backbone of the region. The Panhandle's wide-open grasslands proved ideal for large herds, and ranchers seized the opportunity. Young men rode long hours beneath relentless sun, guiding livestock across territory that seemed endless. They slept under open skies, learned patience from the rhythm of hooves, and faced risks that could turn deadly in seconds. A sudden stampede at night could erase months of work. A missed water source could doom an entire herd. The land rewarded focus and punished carelessness. Children growing up here learned responsibility early. Boys rode horses before they could read fluently. Girls mastered cooking over open flames and managing households isolated from supply routes. Education came from books when available, but also from experience: how to track weather changes, how to repair equipment, how to remain calm when fear whispered loudly. Hardship was not romantic, it was daily reality. Yet within that reality, resilience took root. The Texas Panhandle in the 1870s did more than test people, it transformed them. Those who endured discovered strength they never knew they possessed. Muscles hardened, yes, but so did resolve. In a land where excuses carried no weight and survival depended on action, a generation began to form. Men and women shaped by wind, dust, and determination. They would carry these lessons far beyond the prairie, but first they had to survive it. Life on the Panhandle frontier was defined not by comfort, but by constant trial. Every season brought new challenges that demanded discipline and courage. Blizzards could appear without warning, sweeping across the plains with blinding snow and brutal winds. Ranchers sometimes lost entire herds during the infamous winter freezes of the decade, watching helplessly as cattle drifted with the storm until they vanished into white nothingness. These disasters were crushing, yet surrender was not an option. The land demanded recovery, and so they rebuilt. Drought proved equally merciless. Rain might not fall for months, turning once green grass brittle beneath boot heels. Wells dried up, and water had to be hauled from distant sources at enormous effort. Crops failed, and families rationed carefully. Hunger was not uncommon. Yet even in scarcity, communities shared what little they had. A wagon arriving with extra flour or preserved meat might sustain multiple households. Generosity became as essential as strength. Conflict also shaped the era. The Panhandle sat within territories where tension sometimes flared between settlers and native tribes defending ancestral lands. Fear could spread quickly across isolated ranches. In response, settlers organized watches, fortified homes, and road patrols to protect families. While conflict was tragic and complex, it forced young men to mature quickly, to shoulder responsibility for others long before they might have otherwise. Vigilance became second nature. Technological change added another layer of transformation. The arrival of barbed wire in the mid-1870s revolutionized ranching. Open-range traditions clashed with new fencing methods, sparking disputes known as range wars. Navigating these conflicts required negotiation as much as toughness. Leaders emerged who could balance firmness with fairness, preventing violence while protecting livelihoods. The frontier was no longer only about physical endurance. It demanded judgment and restraint. Railroads slowly pushed closer, linking remote ranches to distant markets. With them came opportunity and outside influence. Yet those shaped by the Panhandle remained distinct. They were cautious of easy promises, accustomed to solving problems with their own hands. Their speech carried the rhythm of open spaces, their movements deliberate and confident. They understood that survival required preparation, patience, and unity. Young people raised in this environment internalized these lessons deeply. They saw parents rebuild after storms, adapt after losses, and continue forward despite exhaustion. Fear was acknowledged, but never allowed to rule decisions. By adulthood, this generation possessed a quiet steadiness forged by repeated adversity. The Texas Panhandle had become more than geography. It was a forge, and its fires were relentless. By the late 1870s, something remarkable had taken shape across the Texas Panhandle. A generation raised amid windstorms, cattle drives, droughts, and isolation had matured into leaders, entrepreneurs, and community builders. They did not seek hardship, but they did not shrink from it either. The frontier had stripped away illusion and replaced it with clarity. Effort mattered, loyalty mattered, and perseverance determined survival. Many who came of age here carried their resilience into broader American life. Some expanded ranching empires that would define Texas agriculture for decades. Others entered public service, bringing practical frontier wisdom into local and state leadership. They valued direct action over rhetoric, preparation over bravado. Decisions were made carefully, because mistakes on the prairie had once carried life or death consequences. Women of the Panhandle played an equally powerful role in shaping this generation. Managing households in isolation required intelligence, adaptability, and courage equal to any rider on the plains. They organized schools, churches, and aid networks, transforming scattered homesteads into structured communities. Children raised under their guidance absorbed lessons of discipline and compassion side by side. As railroads connected the Panhandle more firmly to the rest of the country, outsiders sometimes misunderstood the people forged there. They saw rough hands and weathered faces, but missed the depth of experience behind steady eyes. These were individuals who had stared down blizzards, and buried livestock lost to storms, who had rebuilt fences after prairie fires and replanted crops after drought. Their toughness was not loud, it was proven. The frontier era would not last forever. Towns grew larger, technology improved, and isolation slowly faded. Yet the character formed during those demanding years endured. The Panhandle generation helped define a broader American identity rooted in perseverance and self-reliance. They proved that adversity could strengthen rather than shatter, that unity could overcome scarcity, and that courage did not require applause. The Texas Panhandle of the 1870s was harsh, unforgiving, and relentless. But from that demanding landscape emerged individuals shaped like tempered steel, flexible enough to endure pressure, strong enough to carry responsibility. In the quiet spaces between endless horizons, America's toughest generation had been forged, ready to guide a growing nation into a new century with steady hands and unbreakable resolve.